So one of the voters, and I say this knowing full well what the reaction may be from Vahe Gregorian, but I was asked a simple question during the break by Michael Holley. Had you heard of Vahe Gregorian before yesterday? And my answer was, and I don't mean to drag you into this. This is me. My answer was yes. The last time I looked up the list of the 50, the last time I looked at the list of the 50 voters for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that's the first time that I became aware of Vahe Gregorian. That's the only context I've ever seen his name on that list. And I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who casts a nationwide net on a daily basis, looking for any reporting, analysis, commentary, anything that may be of interest to a zealous, ardent fan of the National Football League. So I know the players. I know the people, whether I know them personally or know of them. And the only context in which I have ever seen or heard the name Vahe Gregorian is as a voter for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So if this guy is covering the NFL on a regular basis, it must be one string of weird coincidences where I'm constantly missing whatever it is that he's reported. And I don't know, maybe I've got 50 stories at PFT. I'm going to go do a search at PFT for all the times that Gregorian has shown up in a PFT story. I have a feeling that DraftKings would set the over-under at 2.5, including the one time last night that it showed up because I wrote the story about his decision to disclose that he didn't vote for Bill Belichick. And look, hey, the Hall of Fame can put whoever they want on the panel, but it does become a little glaring when there's people on there, and there are more than a few who don't actively cover the drip, day in, day out, and haven't actively covered the NFL for a long time. And I'm not saying that because I want a spot, because I tell you I don't, and I would not take it, and I will not do it.
Right.
It's unpaid. I'm already a sucker, unpaid sucker for the Associated Press Awards. I ain't doing it again, and I don't want to do this 10-hour meeting of, all the arguments and discussions and listen to this person. No. I got too much real work to do than sit around and listen to a bunch of sports writers talk about who they think should or shouldn't be Hall of Famers. I spend enough time sitting around talking about who I think should or shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. Anyway, that I didn't mean to go there, but it just, if we're going to examine this whole process
but
now.
It's part of the story.
Let's examine the whole process.
It's part of the story, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if it's Sal Paolantonio, who we all know. It's another thing if it's Vahe Gregorian, whose name I only see when I look at the list of the Hall of Fame voters.
And if you are, if you're a Hall of Fame voter and you're out of the cycle of covering the sport, that doesn't mean you should just be pushed aside and your opinions don't matter. I'm not saying that, but I think if you're out of the cycle of covering the sport for a long time, you will find yourself getting into these philosophical debates that really, if you go outside of the room, people are looking at you like, what are you talking about? Why are you debating this? Think about it. If you're not covering the sport, because there's some people covering the sport, and you've been in this situation, Mike, where you're in a meeting and there are some people in a meeting who like having meetings just because. They're not trying to go anywhere in the meeting. They're not trying to go from A to B. The efficiency never crosses their mind. They just like having a meeting. And then there are people with multiple things to do saying, hey, can we get this going? We could have settled this about 35, 40 minutes ago. You're just going round and round. And I would suggest if you're not covering the sport regularly and you come together for a Hall of Fame meeting, you might be one of those people who just likes the meeting is the covering of the sport. The meeting is where you get your juice. And then you wind up doing some stuff that's just crazy. And I think the Hall of Fame, I got to, Gregorian put his name to it. Thank you. Thank you for putting your name to it. But after hearing his explanation, I'm going to say that doesn't make sense. Did you see the explanation?
Oh, the explanation was that and this is one of the potential explanations that I think we had considered, whether he articulated it or not. The idea that he's got to pick 3 of the 5 that were in the same bucket. Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, Ken Anderson, L.C. Greenwood, Roger Craig. He's got to pick 3 of the 5. He's got to pick 3 of the 5. That's the way the rule is. There's no up or down for each one. And he said if it was up or down, he would have voted for Bill Belichick. But he's limited to 3 of the 5. He decided to go with the players because the way the seniors committee works, Haley's Comet only comes around like once every 75 years, right? Is that how often we see Haley's Comet? Like once your window's open as a senior committee nominee, you kind of disappear for others. So for Anderson, Craig, and Greenwood, this, as Vahe Gregorian perceived it, this was their shot. Belichick will have more. This is it for them. I'm voting for them. That's but it's a bad system that put him in that position. I understand why he did it, Michael, because the system is bad. Each of the finalists should have an up or down vote. That's what it should be.
Okay. I do. All right. So his quote. I think we have his quote. So his quote for why he did what he did. He said pretty much that I didn't necessarily vote against Bill Belichick. I didn't vote against Bill Belichick. I voted for L.C. Greenwood, Ken Anderson, and Roger Craig. Okay. Mike, I didn't vote against you getting the job. I just voted for somebody else to get it. I mean, like, come on. Like, you can't, it doesn't work like that. And I think this is a classic case of overthinking. Okay, the system, we know the system is bad. How do we get beyond a bad system if we are not in position to change it? You do the obvious thing. So you can vote for 3 out of the 5. And I'm trying to think of an equivalent without being disrespectful. So this is, I'll give a contemporary example and just flip it around. I'll flip it around player coach. It's the equivalent of having Patrick Mahomes and Sean McDermott in the same group, and you vote for McDermott over Mahomes because McDermott may not have much time left on the committee. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to say, like, Ken Anderson is Sean McDermott. L.C. Greenwood is, Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson definitely is Sean McDermott. Pretty good, very good. Never won a Super Bowl, but respected. And Patrick Mahomes is Bill Belichick, otherworldly, no question, no doubt. So if you've got a no doubter in that 5, that no doubter must be on your ballot. You got to do it. It's a no-brainer. It's a layup. You got to take it. So I understand what he's trying to say, but it doesn't make sense. You submitted a ballot where you had Ken Anderson for the Hall of Fame and not Bill Belichick. Let's say it that way. You voted for Ken Anderson to make the Hall of Fame, and you left Bill Belichick off your ballot. And so if other people think like that, Bill Belichick is not in the Hall of Fame. That doesn't make sense.
And all it takes is 11. All it takes is 11 out of 50 to come to that conclusion. It would just be nice to hear from the others who didn't vote for Bill Belichick. Is that their reasoning? And specifically what Vahe Gregorian said is all three of the seniors players have been long deserving for induction in the Hall. All 3 have been snubbed for decades. I felt duty-bound to vote for the richly deserving seniors who most likely won't ever have a hearing again as more senior candidates, more additional senior candidates enter the pool and fresh cases get made for others. Meanwhile, Belichick is inevitable soon, as he should be. At the risk of contradicting my own vote, really, he shouldn't even have to wait. So that's what I was trying to articulate earlier. I should have just gone straight to Vahe Gregorian's words because he articulated better than I did. this is it. This is your shot for Anderson, Greenwood, and Craig. If they don't get in now, they go back into this ever-growing pool of seniors players, because after a certain number of years as a modern era finalist, you are ejected from that process and you are thrown into the seniors committee pool, which keeps getting bigger and bigger. And that's the problem. That's the difference between the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Very Good. Some of these guys are never going to get in, and they shouldn't get in. And you could argue that if you didn't get in during the period of time that you were a modern era player, there shouldn't be a senior committee process. There shouldn't be a mop and a bucket to clean up the misses and the messes that we had from past years. Sorry, you didn't get in. It's a Hall of Fame. There's a bar that you just didn't meet. And Ken Anderson, as I said yesterday, he's kind of the Archie Manning of the AFC. It all worked out in 1981, and they strung together a Super Bowl appearance, and he was the league MVP that year. That's fine, but he's not Terry Bradshaw. He's not Ken Stabler. He's not one of the best quarterbacks of the 70s, Fran Tarkenton. So he didn't get in during the normal process, and now we're going to cram him in over a guy who should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But let me say two more things. It's a direct product of a bad voting process, and let me say this. I did a search for Gregorian at PFT. There have been some stories with his name. So I guess I just forgot. Like I forgot, as I said earlier, hey, great Vikings hoodie. I forgot that it was my birthday gift a month ago. Bill Polian forgot whether he voted for Bill Belichick. I am 60. I'm going to start using that excuse more often. But the most recent story from Vahe Gregorian at PFT was October of 2023. It looks like he covers the team actively, or at least he did at the time. The most recent one, he had quotes. It was back when Zach Wilson was playing for the Jets. That's how long ago it was. It was after a Chiefs-Jets game. But that was the first story that I found on PFT before yesterday's, October 2, 2023. And there are others that date back maybe 10 years beyond that. So it's not a regular creator of content in today's NFL media ecosystem. That doesn't mean there's no value, because there are plenty of people with historical knowledge that is necessary to these conversations, like who is Ken Anderson. I mean, some of the people who are on the panel weren't alive when Ken Anderson last played. So you do need that mix. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.